Well, we were all hoping, but Boris Johnson is getting help from an unlikely source in the lockdown party scandal, the London police. They want to heavily censor the eagerly awaited internal report for the time being. But will this save Johnson's career? Well, it's a sigh of relief for Boris. The London police want to black out essential parts of the eagerly awaited report on lockdown parties in the British seat of government. We have asked that minimal reference be made in the Cabinet Office report to the events being investigated by the Metropolitan Police, Scotland Yard said in a statement on Friday. Unfortunately, this should prevent any bias in the investigation. It was said to be the justification for this. So the police surprisingly announced on Tuesday that they would investigate the matter, and this delayed the release of the internal government report by top official Sue Gray. The full report was actually expected last week. It's now questionable whether it will come to light at all before the police investigation is completed. And this is good news for Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He's far more lucky than he's supposed to be, because he has been under intense pressure for weeks. The internal report on several events in his office at 10 Downing Street and other government buildings is considered highly explosive. According to reports, government officials and even Johnson himself are said to have disregarded their own rules for contact restrictions with celebrations during the pandemic. If this is confirmed, a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister is likely. But it will be weeks before that is now really resolved. The list of suspected illegal gatherings is long. Several Christmas parties, a birthday party, a garden party, and a late night drinking before the funeral of longtime Queen husband Prince Philip. Gray's report should clarify who celebrated when, where, how often, and for how long, and with whom. And Johnson had so far dismissed almost all questions about this with reference to the ongoing internal investigations and denied any knowledge of lockdown violations. What a clown. Now he's still gaining valuable time because a heavily censored report is unlikely to endanger him. The danger of a revolt in his faction seems to have been averted for the time being, but we got some other news today. However, some legal experts doubted that the restrictions demanded by the police are necessary. This is absolute bullshit from the Met Police, said Nazir Afzal, the former chief prosecutor for North West England, and he wrote that on Twitter. A purely factual report by Sue Gray cannot in any way prejudice the police investigation, he said, you just have to follow the evidence of which the report will be a part. Other experts, however, expressed understanding for the objections of the Metropolitan Police. A criminal investigation must meet the highest standards of procedural fairness, QC Alex Balin told the BBC. Labour leader Keir Starmer described the government as paralysed by the ongoing affair. I talked about this yesterday, how this could be the paralysation. He wants to see the full Sue Gray report, Gray. Gay me, she Gray. And the investigation must be completed as soon as possible. Conservative MP Christopher Chope even accused the police of abusing their position to interfere in affairs of state. And for the first time, ex-Prime Minister Theresa May, who was overthrown at Johnson's instigation, commented on the affair. According to a report in the local newspaper Maidenhead Advertiser, she wrote to voters in her constituency that she was angry about the alleged lockdown celebrations and that nobody is above the law. Boris Johnson was miscast for the job from the start. It is therefore all the more unfortunate how long some people fall for him. Many consider the British Prime Minister to be Europe's Donald Trump. Boris Johnson polarizes while his demeanor often obscures what he stands for. Boris Johnson adopts a demeanor that is unusual for a UK Prime Minister. Always a little fluffy, occasionally disorganized, and always a bit quirky. The sometimes charming nature of the British Prime Minister seems likable to some, as it is a change from serious politics. It should not be forgotten what Boris Johnson stands for a populist, right-wing conservatism that repeatedly moves on the edge of honesty and far behind that. The latter in particular is currently responsible for the exemplary fall of a Prime Minister who differs significantly from his predecessors not only in terms of the Partygate scandal. Acting Prime Minister Boris Johnson, whose full real name is Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson, was born on June 19th in 1964 in the United States. His family circumstances are said to have been difficult, as the author Tom Bauer reports. Bauer has compiled data on Johnson. The picture he draws is that of a difficult, chaotic, and unstable childhood. The father, Stanley Johnson, is said to have been violent towards his wife, Charlotte. And according to the media, Bauer suspects that his childhood experiences still shape Boris Johnson's relationships with women and men today. Johnson himself is married for the third time and is now a father of 7, allegedly. His wife, Carrie, recently gave birth to Boris Johnson's allegedly 7th child. It is the second child with his current wife, who married the Conservative politician just last year. The incumbent Prime Minister spent part of his school days at the elite boarding school Eton College. The stations in Boris Johnson's biography show that he is deeply rooted in the British upper class. Johnson studied at Oxford University before taking up a journalistic profession, which was also not without scandals. Among other things, it was about untruthful quotes. Johnson held his first major political position as mayor of London between 2008 and 2016, replacing Ken Livingstone as his predecessor. In 2016, Boris Johnson, dubbed Bojo by the tabloids, was appointed Foreign Secretary in the first cabinet by then Prime Minister Theresa May. After Theresa May's resignation, Boris Johnson became British Prime Minister in 2019. Johnson gained notoriety primarily because of his leading role in the wake of Brexit. Politically, Boris Johnson is a populist who repeatedly moves on the border of untruth and also far behind it. In the context of the Partygate scandal about unauthorized celebrations during the lockdown, he is accused not only of having known about it, but also of having been a participant. Johnson had denied much of that and was later refuted. The Prime Minister pretends to be ignorant and innocent, but all indications are that Johnson repeatedly did not tell the truth in the Partygate scandal. How precisely he takes the truth has also been made clear easier. As a populist that he is, in the run-up to Brexit, Johnson liked to appear again and again as part of a campaign that had spread false figures about payments from Great Britain to the EU. Johnson later had to make a U-turn there. As early as 1988, the incumbent Prime Minister was kicked out as a journalist at the Times because he had spontaneously thought up quotes in a report. His penchant for untruths comes to the fore again and again these days. As the Prime Minister's opponents grow louder, he ends almost all corona measures and plans to smash the BBC's funding model. Boris Johnson is a bizarre figure, which is what makes him interesting for observers in the press. A confused speech by the Prime Minister to representatives of the British Industry Association recently really irritated. Johnson forgot his text for about 20 seconds before going on about his experience at a children's amusement park, Peppa Pig World. Seriously. In his speech, the Prime Minister also imitated the sound of a car speeding up and compared himself to Moses. In response to subsequent inquiries, Johnson said the speech went very well. And I'm just repeating this from other videos because it's important for the picture. After reports of alcohol-pregnant gatherings circulated in British government circles as part of Partygate, further reports of alcohol consumption at number 10 Downing Street followed. Employees regularly brought wine into the building in a suitcase on wheels in order to then store it in the office's own wine fridge. Johnson himself is said to have encouraged drinking culture and called for it to let off steam even during the lockdown. The list of his political scandals is long, and I made that list in another video. Boris Johnson may be an unusual personality who breaks with the image of a conservative politician. It's easy to forget what the British Prime Minister stands for politically. The German newspaper Zeit described Johnson as a mix of right-wing agitator and party clown. His easygoing manner sometimes belies the fact that Boris Johnson and his government are taking a right-wing conservative line. The Johnson government recently wanted to massively restrict freedom of assembly with a legal reform. It was an attack on the right to demonstrate. The draft, fortunately, was rejected, but only for the time being. The Police, Crime, Sentencing and Courts Bill specifically targeted climate and anti-racism protests. Justice Minister Dominic Raab also plans to withdraw Britain from the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights. In addition, a judicial review and courts bill should enable the government to simply sit out unwelcome court decisions. And meanwhile, British Home Secretary Priti Patel is working to make it virtually impossible for refugees who have crossed the border illegally, according to the British law, to have the right to stay. The vehicle for this should be the Nationality and Borders Bill. The Johnson government and the Prime Minister himself stand for right-wing conservatism. Even a few pithy sayings, a tousled hairstyle and a little ministerial tone should not hide this. And people should not be blinded by the appearances. They have to look behind that to see the truth finally. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.